All right, we want to take a closer look now at the suspect's Russia connection, and for that we turn to Phil Black, who joins us from CNN Moscow. So, Phil, what more are you learning from there on this connection to Russia?
Well, Rosemary, the Russian officials here are maintaining really a very strict silence. The key questions are the same as they have been for some days now, and that is precisely what did Russia know at the time that it asked the FBI to first look into Tamerlan Tsarnaev back in early 2011, as we've just been hearing. We know from the FBI that the Russian authorities made the request. The FBI say they investigated thoroughly, found no information, went back to the Russians and asked more questions. We've heard from some US officials who say they sent 3 requests back to the Russian side asking for further information because the information they had been given was very thin, vague, and non-specific. So far, we have not heard any elaboration on that publicly from the Russian side. Both US officials here and Russia say they are cooperating very closely. We know that a US embassy official has travelled to Dagestan to interview the parents of the bombing suspects. We believe that interview took place just yesterday, and the expectation now is that one or both of those parents will travel to the United States. Rosemary.
Yeah, and Phil, if Russia was so concerned about the suspect, why would it not have continued and pursued its investigation more thoroughly, perhaps, so that it could hand over more to US authorities?
It is difficult to assess that, Rosemary, because of the very strict silence that the Russian authorities are maintaining. Presumably, he showed up on their radar for some reason, either under direct surveillance, perhaps during an earlier visit to Dagestan, or perhaps while they were monitoring online activities. But at the time that they asked the Americans to help, he was obviously already back in the United States by that point. The key question, as I say, is what did they have on him? Did they have anything more than the vague information they provided the United States with? And if they did have more than that available information, why did they not share it with the US authorities? It is said that there is still some degree of suspicion between US and Russian law enforcement and intelligence officials that obviously goes back to the Cold War and beyond. But Russia has always been a country that talks up the importance of maintaining international cooperation, and particularly in dealing with the terrorist threat. And Russia has always talked about the significant terror threat that it believes exists within this North Caucasus region, and has often expressed some frustration that the international community has not showed as much sympathy for Russia as it tries to deal with what it believes is a very ongoing threat to its own national security. And presumably, I think we're going to hear a little bit more about this in the next few days or so. The Russian leadership very keen to make the point that we believe this has been a threat for some time, and the international community has not always taken us as seriously as perhaps they should have. Rosemary.
And Phil, of course, you mentioned that President Putin will be holding a news conference very soon, in fact. How is he likely to deal with this?
Vladimir Putin will today hold another one of his annual question and answer sessions. It has become an almost annual event to be televised in this country for the time that he has been dominating politics here. This will be the 11th one he has held. He held them through his initial 8 years as president, 4 years as prime minister, and this will be the first one that he has held since he returned to the presidency again early next year. They are big, long sessions that can run for 4 to 5 hours, covering questions on all aspects of Russian life, society and politics. And security within the North Caucasus usually comes up at some point. So I think it is very likely we will hear some comment from him on this today. But again, I think the question is, how specific will he be? I think he will talk about the threat of terrorism, the need to cooperate internationally. But what we'll be listening for is if he gives any specific information on this case, and specifically what the Russians knew about Tamerlan Tsarnaev.